So very warm welcome to the viewers of Ambedkar Caravan and all the listeners who are going to listen to this wonderful first talk on this series of 3 days on the occasion of Baba Saheb Ambedkar's Dhamma Diksha in 1956. 14th October, as we know that it is according to the solar calendar, the date of Dhamma Diksha falls on this date of 14th October. And 13th October, as we know that in 1935, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar declared that he won't die in the hell of a caste and he will come out of that. And on 14th October, it's very significant that these days comes sequentially, like 13th October and 14th October. And tomorrow is going to be the Dhamma Diksha Day according to the lunar calendar. And 16th will be the Dhamma Diksha Day celebration of Chandrapur. So we see that there are a lot of good events which are going to happen in this next 3 days. And today we begin with one of the first seminar of the planned events with a very famous and well-known name in the Ambedkarite Buddhist circle, Lama Rangdrol. And I will just take a few moments to say a word or two about Lama ji. As you know that those who are in the Ambedkarite circle or Buddhist circles of India, they are familiar with his name, and he is a well-known figure for his very unique and special contribution to both the sides of the communities in United States of America and in India. He's somebody who is not just spending his time cogitating, thinking about the issues. He of course does it very intensively. He's a very intense thinker and a psychoanalyst and a psychologist, and I can go on. But his one of his qualities is to really engage with the world around, and in that quest, he travels a lot. He is somebody who loves to travel. He's like a wanderer. But now this last a year and a half has locked us down. But he's not locked up as such, because he's always, wherever possible, giving talks on Buddhism, on Baba Saheb Ambedkar, on the issues of African American movement, and so on and so forth. So he's somebody, I would say, qualify with the word mobilizer. He's a mobilizer of the people. He mobilizes with his intellect, with his physical presence wherever he goes. He's a very unique he's a founder of a very unique sort of a strand in the Buddhist movement, where he tries to bring people's voices together from very marginalized among the marginalized. So he's somebody who tries to go into the communities which are, I would say, marginalized among the marginalized, whether it's in Africa or whether it's in Latin America or whether it's in Asia, wherever it is. And he tries to build the bridges. I know him for the last 20 years. We have been just talking about our friendship, and I know him for the last 20 years, almost 20 years. And we have been in touch for a long time. And I learned a lot of things for him. I wish that one of his contribution in the research is yet to come. He has written a very voluminous book, more than 1,000 pages, more than that, 1,000 pages, and he has tried to brought out the intricacies of both the sides of India and United States. So I think I'm very much looking forward towards his very interesting, incisive work that has to see the light of the day, and I wish him all the best for that endeavor. So before I take much of his time, I would like to request and welcome on this occasion my very dear beloved brother, to whom I look up to for guidance and inspiration. So here is it to you, Lamaji.
Thank you, Mangesh, and the feeling and respect is mutual. It's been such a wonderful experience being able to share your mind, your thoughts, your work, your trajectory, and I feel truly honored to be invited to share time with you and some of our good friends. First of all, let me express my deepest condolences for the losses of those who have, over the last few years, encountered COVID at the deeply personal level. We have many people across the world unified in this experience. And it is worthy of note before any comment between the living that there are departed ones who are truly missed. And so as I'm supposed to speak today for a moment on Buddhism and beyond race and caste, correct? Race and caste, building bridges, yeah. And so I want to kind of take a few minutes to dissect that title, but I wanted to first begin with a little bit about myself, because it speaks to the issue of the value of sharing on this topic. Now, of course, my family was initially brought to America involuntarily, and our heritage, human heritage, was erased. We know not our names, our families, our locations, our villages. We have no way of knowing that, because when the ships brought Africans to the American coast, the names of the people from Africa were not admitted. They were all given American names, and those are the names of record. So we don't actually have a way of looking at a ship's manifest, looking at an African name, and then being able to track that name back to Africa. So we are, to a certain degree, marooned here in this experience of dominance by the descendants and beneficiaries of our enslavement. And that said, in going through Jim Crow and some of the civil rights movement, coming into my life, I graduated from high school here. Most people graduated 18. I graduated at 16, and I went to college. And almost 50 years ago to the day, within the first few weeks, the white students in the building that I was living in set my door on fire. They set a cross, burned a cross on it. And of course, I jumped up thinking I was going to go pull the alarm and save the building and be the hero of the moment. And when I opened the door, this cross was burning. And this really impacted me. I lost my ability to be at college, and I became concerned, because in those days they didn't call the police. That was not a crime. That was a prank. It was a joke, and it should be discussed among the students. And so the trauma of that is one of many traumas of being of a particular race in America. And so I don't have a story of, something that happened to the generation before me in another country in Europe or someplace. I'm saying that growing up Black in America did not start as a problem with George Floyd. It's been a problem for quite some time. And some would even say since the arrival on American shores to present. And so we have this history, this personalized experience with race here in America, which is the foundation of a discussion to be had with our brothers and sisters in India and Asia, who are suffering under likewise and much worse conditions. There is a language between us that is personal and intimate and experiential, not ideological or intellectual, about what this is about. And in the context of discussing Buddhism among us, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. I was really struck with Dr. Ambedkar in the roundtable conferences, where he asserted that the Dalit voice was of its own speaking. It did not need interpretation. It did not need leadership from anyone who was not personalized by the experience and so forth. And so there is this authority based on authenticity of the experience of suffering that is included in the foundation of what Buddhism means to us, why we practice, What are our injuries? When we turn inward, what do we see? And how honest can we be with ourselves in truth about the impacts of that so that we can be the doctors and apply the medicine of Buddhism on our own injuries? So this this issue is, in an American way, important because even to this moment, it's important to understand in America that policing, which is the first contact in the criminal justice system of America, itself can be fatal for us, depending on circumstance. And so we have this constant lethality that is ever present and part of a complex matrix of circumstance that even underlies how we are experiencing, for example, the pandemic. I don't try to be political about this, although it is political, but I think my point here is to be factual. These are the facts. This is if there's to be a bridge on one side of the river, what is the solid foundation that can provide a place for the bridge with a solid foundation on the other side to land? And for this discussion, it has to be the mutuality of personalized suffering, whether it is specific to us or specific to the our witness of the experience around us. Direct and meaningful conversation is necessary among oppressed people in the world. And the answers to global alleviation of human suffering may in fact be collaborative, meaning that maybe we in America will not be able to solve the complex circumstances of our continuum of oppression. And so too in other countries, for the same reason, there may be an inability for people indigenous to those situations to think their way out, or to reason their way out, or to politically mobilize in a way that can put an end to existential suffering. The answer may lie in our ability to speak to one another, because there are things in America that have been accomplished that would be of interest to people who are struggling around the world. And there are also things outside of America, speaking as an American, that deeply enrichen the experience of our struggle, because the experiences outside of America actually produce individuals, thoughts, politics, and understandings that we are unable to do as a new country. And Dr. Ambedkar is, for example, one of those elements. Even with our beloved Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he did not see Diksha, conversion from the religion that was used to justify our slavery, as an agendaed item in his politic. And so for me, as an African American, I made the decision to become Buddhist, having been born not only Christian, but Episcopalian, which is the American version of the Church of England, meaning that the enslavers converted my family, and we have been in that faith for 2 centuries. And I am the first generation of folks in my family to leave the Church of England. And so that was a very daunting experience. However, when I read about Baba Sahib's Diksha, I was deeply inspired. And the fact that he said that he was born again. And in America, to be born again means to be born again in the same religion. And when you when in Christianity, it's possible to renew your vows in the Christian faith, and they express that as being born again, but it is not to be born again if you convert to another religion. And so that those nuances are or were and continue to be pivotal in the understanding of this collaboration that can enrich in all of us. And the bridge, let one pillar of the bridge be that of collaboration between what we know to be true and possible in our countries, respectively, as well as being able to glean from the great archives of human history in other countries what may be applicable and beneficial to us in our home country, as well as in the destiny of the world as a collaborative force of oppressed people. Race and caste, regardless of their differences, offer a kind of grounded mutuality deserving deeper excavation. On the issue of beyond, because this word beyond sometimes it appears, how do we get beyond race? How do we get beyond caste? When I was teaching in the city of Oakland, where most of you in India will refer to the home of the Panther movement, I spent 5 years there teaching in and around the community. My teacher, my Tibetan teacher, used to send some students to my teachings in Oakland to videotape me and or bring back reports about what I was talking about. And he did this out of concern, both for Buddhism and for me, that I would be teaching in accord with the tradition. And one day he invited me over to his house and we were having dinner, and he turned to me and he said, "There's no beyond." And he didn't give any other explanation, and he left it to me to try to figure out, what was he talking about? There's no beyond. Even in some of the teachings that have reached America with regards to the Vajrayana, this word beyond is in the books, having been translated as beyond. And so what he was saying when he told me there's no beyond is that we have the now. This now is the operative moment in the field of action. The moment that we postpone it and place it someplace else, we diminish the ability for ourselves to reach that moment, because there are infinite causes and conditions between now and the moment of beyond that can influence what we thought the moment would be. To a certain extent, in the Vajra teachings, it says that the past is the present. That means that the present is a cumulative effect of the past, and that the present is the future, meaning that everything that happens in the future will be based on causes and conditions and the idea of interdependent origination. It will be an extension of what is done in the present. And finally, that the future is the past, meaning that although we are, for example, here in the present, which is the future based on the past, we are still both in the future of the past right now, and we are in the present, and the present is formed by the past. And so therefore, there's no beyond. There is a continuum in which the past, present, and future manifest simultaneously in any given moment. And that the field of action, the field of change, the place where the bridge must be built is right now, not tomorrow, not beyond race, not beyond caste, but to a certain degree, it can be built using the bricks and stones of caste and race as the very means. It's not so much that we want to navigate a philosophical truth. What we're saying, or what he was saying and expressing to me in this, is that the means of change are always available, But if the mind, for whatever reason, is not able to apprehend them in this moment, that they can be lost. And to a certain extent, oppression is a form of causing us to become distracted, disillusioned, and disappointed, because it forces us to think about survival. And it's very difficult to think of survival and be planning to opportunize the moment. There's a wonderful example of this. I studied music for a while, and I remember a teacher saying, uh, uh, count to 10, no problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now try to pick up this piano, this 200-pound piano. Try to pick it up and then count to 10 at the same time. You can't do it, because the task is so difficult that it takes the RAM of the mind to figure out how to get it done, and therefore we lose the ability to do the very simplest of tasks. And so this idea of beyond is kind of like lifting that piano. It puts us into a thinking mode that may cause us to miss what is directly in front of us. And in time, as moments pass, opportunities pass as well. And so this bridge, if it is to be built in terms of Buddhist philosophy and practice, it's best attempted to be built right now, in this moment, using the very experience of oppression in all of its various manifestations as the means. And some people feel, that's, Lamaji, that's impossible. Look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. And as they're saying that, the moment is passing, you see? It's passing. And they can be right, it is difficult. But let us make that our task. How in these difficult moments do we build a bridge? Let that be the task, not waiting for beyond, for the better time when we will be able to do something in our mind that we think will happen in the future. This is what my teacher was saying. And he said it all to me by just turning to me directly and saying, there's no beyond. And then we just kept talking. And so race and caste are experiences that we can share. I'm talking about building a bridge. And the time to do it is not beyond, although beyond has a place in Buddhist philosophy. But in terms of the field of action, we have to be careful that we understand that that beyond that is best suited for us to take advantage of things is right now. The beyond is now. And so that's a little bit of an unpacking of the title of this talk, which is, I think, important when one is attempting to build a bridge. When we think of, when we look back at the caves in Maharashtra, and we look back at the stupas in Krishna Valley, and we look at the history, we are witnessing what people did right then, not beyond. They accomplished those great feats of architecture and remembrance for perpetuity in the moment, not beyond. And so we have this legacy of being able to have evidence strewn about Asia in various times where people redundantly repeated this statement of Buddhism's relevance to the human condition. Now, we know that, for example, energy is equal to mass times the velocity of light squared. We know this. And we've yet to really analyze time and space in the same way. Not that time and space exist as two things to be explored, but the possibility that time and space are equal to one another, just like energy is equal to mass. Because if we consider the fact that time and space may be equal, then we know, as they say in America, what time it is in this space. This is the time in this space where things happen, not in ideas of beyond. We do not know, what we do not know is in our 21st century understanding is that energy, mass, time, and space exist in a complex simultaneity. And that understanding of the simultaneousness of all of those factors is yet to be unfurled in human consciousness, in the intellect. In America, there's a big fascination right now with these ships that seem to be moving in space and defying gravity and the laws of physics in the universe. And they can go from 0 to 80,000 miles an hour and stop on a dime and turn left and shift right and go up and then zoom off at the speed of incomprehensible speed and disappear. What is that? There's this attraction. And in the Buddhist philosophical set of the Vajrayana, there's only one thing in the human experience that can move like that. And so the question is, for example, let's think back to Ashoka. Instantly, our mind is shifted from the present 2,000 years. Now let's think back to last week. Here we are again. So the mind is the only thing that can move that quickly and shift and not be located in the physical universe. And it is also the place where time and space and energy and mass are concepts. And so this digestion of the capacity of the human mind is within our scope in terms of our canon. And so to that extent, when we are discussing what is the freedom of mind necessary in order to build a bridge that has not been seen before in the context of race and caste at the global level, that is not only significant for our communities, but can be an inspiration to oppress people all over the world. The human mind is a place where this can occur, as long as we know not to allow oppression itself to distract us from the time that this should be done, which is now. As such, it's important for us to investigate not just the Buddhist philosophy and practice of our choice, such as Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Dr. Ambekar's Buddha Dhamma, Nalanda, and so on. It's also important for us in the Buddhist world, regardless of our personal preferences, choices, and perhaps our traditions and heritage, to really take note of Takshila, influenced by Kanishka, really to understand the Greeks, the Zoroastrians, animism, and so on, of Vikramshila and its Vajrayana contributions, including Padmasambhava to Tibet. And as I mentioned, the stupas in Krishna Valley on the east, and its rich history in the dissemination of Buddhism to the ancient Mediterranean worlds, its cotton plantations, its textiles, and the presence of Roman coins to be found there. When I'm teaching, for example, in America, and I show pictures of cotton fields in East India, it blows the mind of African Americans because the cotton field is such an integral part of the identity of slavery that they immediately, their interest is piqued. Now, it's not the same, I know that, but we're talking about building bridges from two disparate points. And so we can't be concerned about, is it the same? We can say that these ideas and this experience in this land invokes interest in this other land, and likewise. And it is the interest and the curiosity over time built by curious minds that in their moments can build this bridge. So it's not necessarily one's personal idea of philosophy and practice. It is understanding the playing field, the history, the truth, the objective evidence that cannot be put aside by some oppressive ideology like it didn't happen. This is extremely important to this bridge building. In the Nyingma school, which I am trained in, which the Dalai Lama has admitted was extrapolated from Nalanda University's teachings and the communication between cultures in ancient times. We have this system of vehicles, the yanas, which is known to most Buddhists. Yeah. And in the Vajrayana Nyingma tradition, there are infinite yanas, meaning there are infinite vehicles. There are as many vehicles as there are human beings interested in Buddhism. However, they're broken into 9 categorically. And the point being with those 9 is that none of them are alike. The monastic view is very different than the lay Mahayana view of compassion and feeding people and clothing people and tending to people's illnesses and injuries and so forth. And then the Vajrayana is some kind of intellectual, fantastical pursuit. These are not the same, but they are similar in their goal, and that is to turn the human attention inward and to make the practice of solving the problems of bringing peace to the world, solving that problem by using one's own inner experience of inner peace, like Buddha at the Bodhi tree, to then launch understanding into the world. They're the same in that, even though their approaches are different. And in this Tibetan idea, each vehicle has an opinion of the other, and they're all different. So all that to say that in the Nyingma tradition, it is taught that human beings have many different points of view. And for example, if a person asks a question of a Lama, there are 81, that's 9 vehicles times 9's views, possible answers at any given one moment. And they are all correct as long as they tend to lead into this understanding of turning inward as a practice of faith. Why is that? Because from the Nyingma point of view, and I'm just talking about that particular school, it is a protection against dogma. Whatever one believes is not disputable. What is disputable is when we begin to attack one another based on some hierarchy of one being better than the other, one being more important than the other. There's a danger in that when we look across the world, and it's important to understand that when I say it, look across the world, I'm talking about my personal travel to the border of Russia and the Arctic and down into Europe and into Latin America and across America and all the great cities of America and Pune Nagpur and Bangalore, and really traveling to really engage with people at a personal level and discuss Buddhism with them. When you have that point of view, that experiential understanding, you realize that this problem of people arguing over faith is a global endemic point of contention that has been the cause of many, many deaths, far more than can be imagined from a pandemic throughout time. And so there is this need for us as Buddhists to somehow navigate that we do have strong feelings about our particular tradition, our particular faith, and we have evidence to prove that it's right. But we ought not then have struggle between us over it, because if we do, the bridge will be the victim. Because how will we ever separate ourselves from what other faiths have done in the world if we are unable to show that somehow we have a way of remedying dogma before it becomes a problem? So this is represented in many different ways when we go back in history and we understand the evolution of the burial mound evolving into stupa, and stupa being a simplified geometric form, and the appearance of Buddha as in a human form, and the footsteps and the chair and the tree and all of the pantheon of Buddhist deities, the personification of Buddhist ideas in the human form. We have all this rich tapestry of evolving understandings and manipulations of ideas. And that is something that we have to contend with as a community. But out of respect for communicating and building bridges in the world, it's not only important for us to have some type of easement in our differences, but we also have to have a way of growing Buddhist minds. And I work with families and they're concerned about, Lamaji, what do I teach my children? If I stay in the now, then I am perplexed by the circumstances of modernity. If I go in the past, I am sentencing them to further excavate ideas that have been already digested. What is the future? How do I align my son or daughter with the future? And in terms of building bridges, I maintain that we have to increase our literacy of the world outside of Buddhism, because we cannot make the impact in the global arena by preaching to the choir. We cannot. By preaching to the choir, I mean discussing the same things that we've always discussed, that have been discussed in part or in whole, or we are doing a variation, a contemporary variation of something that has been discussed for centuries. There is a place for that. But in terms of reaching out into the world, especially the non-Buddhist world, where our relevance is important, it is our watch, we are bound to continue to evolve the relevance of Buddhism in times to come, so that people can receive it as we have in our time. And therefore, at least with my students, I'm saying, listen, you must study animism, which was once a global faith. Just go to the ancient caves of Europe and Africa. You'll see the animals there. We have to be fluent in Abrahamism of the desert religions. We have to understand agnosticism, atheism, Marx, Lenin, communism. These are languages human beings speak in the mind. in terms of their spiritual or non-spiritual ideologies. We have to be able to talk about elementalism. That is a faith based in nature, such as earth and fire and water and celestial astronomism, sun worship, worshipers of the moon. Why? Because there are human beings in the world suffering who speak this language. We have to understand directionalism. What is directionalism? There are some people, regardless of what they say their faith is, they are concerned with direction. I'm from the north. I'm from the south. I'm from the east. I'm from the west. The Western idea, the Eastern idea, the Northern idea, they are very much involved, almost as though it was a religion. Direction. So directionalism, we must understand the language of this, because if we are to have a constructive conversation with people who are thinking in this way, then we must, because they may not come to Buddhism, we as Buddhists must be able to go to them and to understand their mind and to have something to say that is of relevance to them so that we can navigate and negotiate the issues of peace and the throwing off of oppression. We have to deal with experientialism of consciousness and its infinitude of altered states. You may not know, but in America, one of the most policed areas of our society is altered states. Any drug or any substance or any idea that alters a state of mind is watched by the government. Some of it's monitored and some of it is made illegal because the consciousness itself is a location where things can occur. To think outside the box, sometimes you have to, and I'm not saying drugs or anything like that. I'm just saying that sometimes your mind can go places where you are outside of ordinary thinking. And I bring this point to you. In America, it's very important right now to be able to state, what are your pronouns? Do you want to be referred to as his, him, her, hers, their, theirs? This is very important, but to the Buddhist mind, to my mind, I know that you who are listening and all human beings experience dreams. It's part of our species phenomenon. And many of us experience dreams our whole life without asking one simple question: where does the light in our dreams come from? You're asleep, your eyes are closed, the lights are off, and yet you have a vivid dream and there's daylight. Where does the light come from? This is a very important question that is seldom, if ever, asked. But it leads to a possibility, at least in my mind, and that is, am I this human being that is locked in race as I was taught from a child? Am I this being lost in gender? Am I this being lost in culture? Is that what I am? Or am I the light in my mind that has overestimated the importance of my material manifestation? Which is it? What kind of pronoun is that? And so there is this freedom of thought that we are capable of experiencing that is part of our consciousness, but it's almost as though our cultures have caused them to be no-go zones. The very language of English itself makes no name for what I just described. So there is no word for it. And yet most human beings understood what I just said because they too have this light in their mind. So experientialism and consciousness is an area that is common to all. How do we develop language for this bridge? What stone in the bridge is it that this can serve? these kinds of questions. This is not necessarily Buddhist ideas, but it is people think in this way, and therefore the language of speaking to them uh, demands that we have conversation abilities about this. And then there are the energetics, the energy of mind itself, the volition of mind. We all have it, but what is the language of it? How do we experience it? How do we talk about it? And then there's reformism, such as the reforms and protestations of orthodoxy. There are many faiths who consider themselves faiths based on what they protest. That is a language. They speak a language of nonconformity, non-orthodoxy. And then there are reversal faiths, faiths that base themselves on their power to reverse the behavior of believers from something that was detrimental to them. And we might look at, for example, I have a Filipino contingent of Buddhist students and practitioners who are mostly women of the Babaylan culture in the Philippines. And the Babaylans are women who celebrate the return to pre-colonized Filipino culture where women ran the show. And so they are in the process of what they call decolonizing their mind, meaning surgically, psychospiritually removing the essence of colonization so that they can get back to the freedom of leadership as a woman without being fettered by the misogynistic ideas of various religions. They are in a reversal faith. There are other kinds of reversal faiths like Desmond Tutu in South Africa, who offered public confession to anybody in exchange for immunity. If you go and confess what you did publicly during South Africa's worst times, you would escape prosecution. So therefore, you can reverse the consequences of criminal behavior just by involving yourself in this process. And of course, Baba Said, who anyone who's ever taken to heart the 22 vows knows that there's a deeply rooted in not only allowing Buddhism into your heart and into your mind, but also divesting yourself of certain behaviors that he very clearly articulated as being detrimental to your human dignity. And so these are the building blocks of understanding that have non-Buddhist implications that Buddhists ought to perhaps consider as part of building a bridge, because the world is not Buddhist. It has never been one religion, nor will it ever be. And so one does not go to France and not learn French. One does not go to Germany and not learn German. They did not go to all of these various countries and not learn the languages. It doesn't mean that you have to abandon your family language and your communal language. But in order to navigate the world, you must understand that the world does not speak perhaps your language that you were born to. And so too, the identity of faith is deeply rooted in languages disparate and different from our own. And as I said, I'm not speaking philosophically. I'm saying, what is it like to be an African American Lama traveling in the lands of the people who serve to enslave your family? Well, you must be fluent, not in the language of the country, but in the language of the people and their faith, because that's how they see you, you see. And so this bridge of race and caste is to share our intellectual understandings and share the vast resources we have of encountering these peoples in disparate places. When I was in junior high school, they would send a note home to the families saying, we're going to take pictures of the kids on such and such a day. It had to be written in 14 different languages. And that's a lot for America. And so this notion of who we have encountered who we have embraced, how we have had to learn to be with one another is of significant importance. And this is not polity, it's not political per se. It is a matter of what I call spiritual literacy, to be literate in the faiths and beliefs of the world outside of our own. Buddhist freedom of thought allows us to see the world in this way compassionately. We have the capability of establishing global outposts of civility and understanding, like Ashoka's hospitals built for the people, or oases in vast deserts along the Silk Road, or Jayavarman VII's 12th century Ashokan-styled hospitals and rest points for travelers. We have the ability to, as Buddhists, to build these connections and to create outposts in the world, and to become known as people of the world who are able to speak the language indigenous to wherever we find ourselves, in addition to our own, and the combination thereof being our Buddhist practice to a certain degree. We must pursue this matter of being and remaining relevant in the future, a future that guarantees our ability to communicate in an ever-shrinking and complex world. We have this moment. We must use it. We must use it despite all suffering, as Buddhists of antiquity did on behalf of us in these modern times. We do not need to fight with and among opposing views. The direction and pressure of today's stressors are and will continue to drive humanity towards us. The people are seeking peace. They're seeking relief. They don't want to be a part of the destruction of humankind, the annihilation of the best parts of us with regards to our dignity and humanization of circumstances. We carry with us in this great building exploration, this bridge, we carry with us the volumes of Genius Ambedkar and explicated doctrines of Buddha in all its manifestations and means. An entire opus whose continuity was selected on 14 October 1956. Baba Sahib brought them together in one act, and we are the beneficiaries of his great genius in this way. We have, the vehicle is already built, but it is up to us to contemporize it with regards to the needs that we find ourselves in. I'm almost done here, my guest. The main challenge is
you can carry on, Lamaji. It's a beautiful exposition. Please carry on. It's a beautiful exposition.
Thank you. The main challenge is to not let what's being done to us detract or distract us from the potential inevitability that the world may come to us of its own accord. We must calculate this. So much of our energy is to try to sell Buddhism, when in fact, the world is moving towards more understanding more peaceful means of accomplishing commingling our differences. They're not coming to us because of our spats and battles with those vested in our oppression. They're not coming to us because of that. Rather, they're coming because that oppression is increasingly becoming detestable in the common sense of human civility. The detestation of humanity itself is driving it to peaceful alternatives. Oppressive forces of dehumanization, degradation, pollution of the natural environment, hiding, blocking, and running away from truth, all these have a consequential end. They are not without consequences, and we do not participate in them because we do not want to be involved in the consequences of them, but not everybody is doing that, and therefore we are distinguished if we hold with our fundamental beliefs in the Buddhist world. It is our responsibility not only to preserve freedom of thought, we must become the repository of goodness that grows ever impatient, that the world grows ever impatient to receive. Like rich soil to a fertile forest, the strength and power of sustaining life may very well come from beneath the canopy of aggrandizement and cultural self-concern. Of course, there will be immediate opposition to what was said here. Rejection, condemnation of so-called non-Buddhist doctrinal ideas. But let us remember the world is not, nor will it ever be, one faith. Civility lays in our ability to communicate with one another in mutual respect and dignity that oppressors simply cannot accomplish as a result of their harmful means towards humankind and the natural world. So this is the message. This is my response to being called to speak on building a bridge. We have this opportunity, and the very challenges faced today can be the reasons, number one, why we redouble our energies, and also a new calculation on the table in terms of the possibility that people are seeking us as much as we are seeking liberation from oppression. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
No, I think I will look at your exposition just now you delivered on many, many levels. And from the subtle level of spiritual practices to the level of how we can bring our communities together, it has been a very, I would say, deep and wide exposition of the topic. And some of the points that you raised today are so valuable for us to understand, particularly your point of understanding the languages of others. And you brought that point so well in terms of how that understanding will lead to a more benign, compassionate, and peaceful world. I think that's a beautiful message that you have given, and it's very practical way with which you delivered your amazing talk. I do not think that I have a lot of questions on my mind, and I don't see a question emerging from the audience, but I would definitely see that this is a very historical talk that you have delivered today, and it has to be communicated widely and to the larger audience. If possible, we may have to even transcribe it and translate it into the regional languages. So that was the power of your speech today, and the power of words that you delivered today. And it's very empowering words, very edifying words, I would say, that you have delivered today. And I have no words to say how thankful I am for having this chance to listen to your wonderful, wonderful, beautiful talk. I think before we end, I would like to offer you some moments to recollect if you want to say something and share something at the spur of moment.
Well, I remember years ago when I was studying teaching Buddhism, and I came across a line that said that a Lama, a teacher, must be able to present highly complex ideas in the language of the laity. Because if the laity is not able to understand, the message is lost, it's partialized, it's cleaved, it's cut. And so always in my presentations and my teachings, I try to serve from, as I call it, from the rural to the royal. And I mean that literally. And so I believe that this open-mindedness in Buddhism is able to digest these complex ideas
Yes.
into very simple understandings. And it is these understandings that can be communicated across culture, across time, across language in a simple way, because people yearn to understand, but sometimes their attention span is very short. And their understanding is not of a magnitude that the full excavation of a complex discussion would reach them. And so my hope is that this talk has been, in its own way, understandable, as I said, from the rural to the royal. And as in all things Buddhism, the best part of our culture, the best part of Baba Sahib is that one not even be literate in order to get the message. You see what I'm saying?
True, true.
This is the key. This is the key. If we are to invest in the future, let it be in investing the big ideas that we carry that on our watch in a way that can be perceived by Buddhist and non-Buddhist alike throughout the world in a language that even the illiterate can deeply appreciate. And then we win. This is just that simple. It's not complicated.
That's
You know,
very beautiful.
it's not complicated. Okay. So certainly, you have my permission to transcribe and do whatever you need with these teachings. They are from my heart to yours, my 20-year friend, and all of the folks who have supported me over the years so that I could make the great ventures into the world.
Yes.
And I have come home and I have a story to tell. And please call me anytime if there are any questions or any way I can be of support to you and your efforts.
Just the idea of mind consciousness as a location, as a locus of transformation. And in the way you commented that everything distilled down to that one moment of Diksha, where Baba Sahib Ambedkar gave Diksha to his followers. I think
Yes.
that point in time when that particular moment took place in the history, I think that was the beginning
Yes.
of a revolution that whose after effects are
Yes.
are going to feel after I don't know how many centuries.
Yes.
65 years is a very short time to understand what might
Yes.
have happened at that seat of time in that moment. I think that was a wonderful sort of presentation of what might have happened on that day and how we are still feeling the vibrations of what happened on that day. And the talk is as a result of that thing happened there.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
Lamaji, it's wonderful to listen to you again and again, and I'm very happy to see you looking so good.
Thank you, my friend.
And we'll continue to have these conversations in the future. But thank you so much for this very erudite, very, very easy to understand talk and bringing the complex issues down to the level and in the language that can be understood. We are extremely grateful to you for your wonderful exposition, Lamaji, and we'll continue to explore our ideas, our discussion. Actually, this is the part of the bridge that we are trying to build. This conversation,
Yes.
talk of yours is a bridge
Yes.
in the sense that it's connecting the communities
Yes.
there and communities here and the humanity at large.
Yes.
So thank you so much, brother. And I'm looking forward to have another conversation with you very soon. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anytime.
Thank you. Wait a minute. One minute.